So this session, as you'll see in your programs, is entitled Future Forward, Taking Charge of Change. I don't imagine there are too many of us here who haven't privately longed for at least a pause, if not a period of respite, in the pace of change which is overtaking universities. I won't chronicle every kind of change. We know the sorts of changes that are occurring in this era of globalisation and of diminishing resources for what we do. But we have today three distinguished speakers. They are able to speak from their experiences in Canada, in India and in South Africa on the responses to change, the ways in which we can capitalise on and manage the pace of change for our universities and benefit in what for us is a rapidly changing higher education sector and environment. So can I first of all introduce Professor Stephen Toope. He's President and Vice-Chancellor of the University of British Columbia in Canada, of course. He was a former President of the Pierre Elliott Trudeau Foundation and Dean of Law at McGill University. He also served as a law clerk to the Right Honourable Brian Dixon of the Supreme Court of Canada. He earned his PhD from Trinity College in Cambridge and his degrees in common law and civil law from McGill University. He graduated magna cum laude with his AB in History and Literature from Harvard University. Professor Toope has published regularly in leading international journeys, and it's a great pleasure to have him be the first speaker today. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and good morning, colleagues. It's really an honor to be here on this special occasion for the Association of Commonwealth Universities. I was a Commonwealth scholar here in the United Kingdom, so I have a particular fondness for everything to do with the Commonwealth, and it's really wonderful to be amongst you. Always leave them wanting more. That is the hidden ethic of Broadway theater. And it's Broadway that provided the inspiration for the title of my presentation today. I love you, you're perfect, now change. I have no doubt that whatever I've accomplished in my time at UBC, and probably whatever most of us accomplish as vice-chancellors, we will leave them wanting more. And then our successors will be faced with a chorus that we've been listening to for several years now. I love you, you're perfect, now change. Those three little phrases that nobody really wants to hear, whether it's government asking us to tweak our research agendas to speed up commercialization, industry questioning our ability to meet the need for skilled workers, grantors placing geographical limits on eligibility for funding, or students wondering why our entire course calendar and library system isn't online yet. We're getting it from all sides in every relationship of which we're a part. We love you, we need you, you're fabulous, but could you just be different? You're not commercial enough, not pure research enough, not practical enough, not academic enough, not local enough, not national enough, not digital enough, not real world enough, not enough. Relationships. They're enough to make a university vice-chancellor run for the self-help books, or more realistically, given our schedules, to a top 10 internet list. So I did. I Googled, I admit it, and I did it for all of us, and you're going to want to hear this. The top 10 advantages of being in a relationship. These include higher self-esteem and not having to dress up all the time. I'm not sure that's true for us in this case. The top 10 excuses you make to stay in a bad relationship. These include, but it's comfortable. And last but not least, the top 10 relationship killers, number one of which is changing yourself to please or to try to hang on to your relationship partner. I could have called my presentation Managing Change on Your Terms, but I didn't because I thought that we could use a little bit more of a provocative perspective on our situation and perhaps a little bit of a laugh. The laughs are hard to come by recently. Ernst & Young's University of the Future study last year quotes our Australian colleagues as saying, and I quote, "It's going to be a tough decade," or "Our major competitor in 10 years' time will be Google if we survive," or "There will be 15 to 20 independent global brands. The rest of us will be playing for the silver medal," end quote. The study's working hypothesis, which I contest is valid, not only in Australia but elsewhere, is that the dominant university model of a broad-based teaching and research institution supported by a large asset base and a large, predominantly in-house back office will probably prove unviable in all but a few cases over the next 10 to 15 years. That is a very tiny time horizon for an institution that got its start in medieval times. Don't get me wrong, we do know how to survive, and we know how to evolve. We've done it for 800 years. We've proven it. But I agree that what we're facing now is the need to transform ourselves perhaps to a greater degree and in a shorter span of time than we've ever had to accomplish before. Now, management consulting firms are profiting nicely from the quiet panic prevailing in cloistered hallways all around the world. Each one offers its own version of the top 10 list, and then we scramble to tick off the boxes. First, there's this list of so-called change drivers, and you're familiar with all of them. Increased competition for students, increased competition for funding, decreasing government funding, increasing costs per student, proliferation of digital technologies, global mobility, increasing need to integrate with industry, an urgent need for skilled workers, advances in our understanding of how people learn, government and student demand for more outcomes-based measures of performance, global interconnectivity, developing countries' exploding demand for higher education, and the catch-all globalization. Now, I'm sure that I've missed a few, and the list seems to grow every day. And then there are the well-meaning and occasionally self-serving recommendations as to how we all should proceed. Maintain the status quo, but streamline is one. Dominate a particular market niche is another. Becoming a teaching-only institution is a third. Merge with other sectors such as media, innovation, and venture capitalism to create something entirely new is yet another. The common denominator, the phrase I hear in association with every recommendation, is the necessity for radical transformation. Radical transformation. When I became aware that that's what I was hearing, it hit me. We're doing that thing. We're doing that thing that people do when someone says, "It's not you, it's me. I love you, you're perfect, but it's just not working." We're doing that thing. We're changing only to please. Hipper hairstyles, sexier clothes, wittier remarks, brighter laugh. We're tap dancing like crazy, only someone else is in control of the music, and we know that no matter how fast or furiously well we dance, we still might not get a part in the show. We still might get dumped for a shinier, glossier rival. Social media, the new matchmaker, pickup bar, relationship display window, and dumping ground all in one. Facebook, for example, offers 11 choices when it comes to declaring your relationship status. One of those 11 is, "It's complicated." That's us. That's universities, with every single one of our stakeholders and constituents and partners. Complicated. Sorry, folks, it's complicated because you see we've got all these change drivers buffeting us about and recommendations from all sides as to how to respond, and it's just so enormously complicated. Except it's not. Perhaps it's even simple, and the problem is simple, and perhaps the solution is simple. So much so that it's been staring us in the face, for about 800 years. Let me be clear. We do need to change. We need to change a lot, and we need to change fast. The process will be difficult and even painful at times, and the ACU may look different 10 to 15 years from now. I'm told by change management experts that the majority of institutional change efforts fail, approximately 70% of them. But difficult is not the same as complicated, and vital change is not the same as radical transformation. Radical, as you know, means root. It means changing in essence. And if we do that, and some of us are making moves in that direction, I believe we've lost. We may need to make drastic alterations in order to carve out our place in this brave new century, but what will enable us to survive and thrive through the next 10 challenging years is, I think, holding fast to the medieval mission of the university. Now, how's that for radical? I thought about writing my own Toope's Top 10 Tips for Surviving This Make or Break Decade. But you know what? It's really hard to remember 10 things, and so I wanted to give you one thing to remember. One change driver that you can use as a lens to look at all change drivers, and one criterion you might want to use to evaluate your next steps. The common denominator of every driver of change, from digitization to climate change to global mobility, is, I think, direct experience. Direct experience, either the desire for it or the absence of it. Universities arose out of an ecclesiastical culture that presumed a responsibility for mediating followers' experience of the sacred. That paternalistic dynamic stayed with us even over our transformation to secular institutions and has perpetuated the ivory tower reputation that is so prevalent even today. My bottom line, to the extent that we as institutions continue to mediate or even block direct experience, we will falter. To the extent that we're able to provide or increase access to direct experience, we will succeed. Now, other sectors have led the way for us, demonstrating both what to do and not to do. The music industry now has its iTunes, and the film and video industry its Netflix. In both cases, the end user has access to all available content at any time and in any way she wants it. No more commercials, no more waiting a week for the next episode, no more LPs where someone else has decided which songs she'll hear and in what order. The business model is both economical for the user and profitable for the owner. Music and screen artists are directly available to their fans via social media, as well as over traditional channels. The publishing industry, on the other hand, is still figuring out ebooks, which were supposed to revolutionize the industry, but they've turned out to be nothing more than print analogs, ironically. They're not a new business model because they're not a user-driven way of accessing content. Meanwhile, the growing success and credibility of self-publishing, both in print and online, is mystifying the industry's captains. Don't readers need Random House to tell them what's worth reading? And so the mergers and the closures and the bankruptcies continue. The proprietary exclusionary control of content is obsolete. Every change, from the ones that are upon us to the ones that we can't yet imagine, are going to be driven by people's desires for ever more direct experience. Every one of our failures will be born of our inability or our refusal to provide it or to get out of the way. I think that it's a university's job to lower barriers that limit or disallow direct experience. I'm talking about the invisible barriers between individuals of different backgrounds, cultures, and orientations on our campuses that Sir David King talked about earlier. I'm talking about the borders we've drawn between our campuses and the communities we serve, the boundaries between disciplines, fields, and faculties, and those between our institutions that exist because of geographical distance or philosophical difference or market share competition. I'm also talking about the barriers from financial to political that keep too many local students and scholars homebound and too many would-be international scholars and teachers locked out. We claim to be graduating global citizens, but how many of them have traveled? How many have had a transformative encounter with someone whose views and beliefs markedly differ from their own? How many actually have left our campuses after 4 years without ever having thought seriously about how their fields of study, whether music or mathematics or marine biology, relates to the fundamental challenges of our world that Sir David articulated so brilliantly earlier this morning? Universities too often shy away from the deep realities of social diversity. We've arrived at this critical juncture in collective university history partly because of our fear of crossing borders and boundaries and barriers. We're afraid of a no man's land of contested values. We seek to find consensus before we allow for the kind of spirited dialogue that sharpens understanding. We prize comfort over robust and challenging debate all too often. Now, we Canadians are sometimes known for tolerance, and we're pretty good at that, but we're not good at principled, open-minded engagement with individuals and institutions and cultures whose values are not necessarily compatible with our own. Is that a Canadian fault or a universal one? You decide. I'll say that universities' failure so far to fully democratize access to direct experience, whether it be information or intercultural encounters, is based principally in fear. Our fear of losing control, of being irrevocably and detrimentally altered. So what do we do? Is there one magic criterion by which every decision in the difficult decade to come may safely be gauged? Well, perhaps there is. Be yourself. It's the one thing that all relationship gurus and top 10 lists agree upon. In any event, everyone else is taken. Universities have a mission that is unique in all the world: to serve the world through the preservation and dissemination of knowledge and the creation of new knowledge and the inspiration of generations of graduates. That is our task and our task alone. We may need now to figure out new ways to do it. And as Sir David emphasized, our graduates are facing a different world than the one that most of us graduated into. But we do not need to become something entirely new or to figure out something new to do. We do not need to fear having our mission taken away from us, but we should take a hard look at our readiness to relinquish it like a baby with bathwater. Our survival rests, I believe, in holding on to the unique and necessary role that we have carved out for ourselves over 800 years. Our challenge lies in the fact that we are no longer optimally organized to fulfill the mission in our world. Up until now, we've managed to evolve alongside the rest of society, allowing everything from returning war veterans to the feminist revolution help to shape institutions that we've become. Free market capitalism as well has helped us to become better organized for competition, but perhaps not collaboration. Our collegial system of governance, largely a positive trait, can be a hindrance when it comes to responding to high-speed change, such as we're undergoing now. We're nation-based, and our national systems do not fully support our need for mobility. And we're often preoccupied with superficial measures of reputation, short-sighted research funding rules, and commercialization over sustainability. Why? Well, it would be easy to blame a lack of money, but I don't. That's not a good enough answer. I blame a lack of service. Sometimes we forget to serve, or we forget the value of the core service we provide. Universities change the world. It's what we all came here to do. It's what Sir David challenged us to do. It's what attracts our students, inspires our staff, our faculty, the direct experience of putting our unique gifts into service in the world. It should be our point of attraction for everyone we partner with. But we're providing pathways that aren't always clear for that service. Are we clear ourselves that that's what we're offering? Money is often there. It's part and parcel of the desire to serve. So we're not making a big ask. We are making a big offer to society. The biggest. We can change worlds. Join us. Show, don't tell, show political leaders of every stripe that the economic long view is crucial, as is our place in strengthening it. Offer our faculty members incentives for crossing barriers of discipline and geography. Reward our staff for the ways they contribute to sustainability, intercultural understanding, and international engagement. Expand free access to course content. Some of this doesn't even require a lot of money. One final thought. It's time to put away our focus upon rankings. University rankings are predicated on an assumption that we're all trying to do the same thing, which is to say, be all things to all people. In this time of hyper-diversity and specialization, I can't think of anything more likely to prescribe your institution's decline. Universities exist to serve the world through the preservation and dissemination of knowledge, the creation of new knowledge, and the lighting of the fire of inspiration in our graduates. The form that takes can and should be utterly unique for each of us. Ralph Waldo Emerson said, "To be yourself in a world that is constantly trying to make you something else is the greatest accomplishment," end quote. Know yourself, know your value. Let the barriers down and invite in the messiness of transformation. Change structurally if you must, but don't change radically. Don't abandon your medieval roots. They are what make us what we are, and the world needs us more than ever. Thank you.
The key message that I hope the audience will take away from my plenary talk is that although we are in a time of dramatic change, and universities, I think, will have to change over the next decade or so to continue to be relevant to the world as it is changing, at the same time, I think we also have to be really clear about what our fundamental mission is. And I don't think that we need to radically transform ourselves. I think we need to try to improve our optimal organization to deliver what we've always done, which is great knowledge translation, great research, and inspiring teaching. There is absolutely room for the university's historical commitments in the 21st century. And the reason I say that is because the history of our universities, which dates back, of course, 800 years, is really a history of service to society, producing the leaders of society, producing new knowledge, and helping that knowledge to be dispersed into the wider society. I actually think universities have changed dramatically in that 800 years, and we're being asked to change again in the way we organize ourselves, in some of our emphasis. But those historical commitments actually, in my view, remain utterly unchanged. Well, I think what universities must do over the next decade, really, is to think through how we organize ourselves to deliver on our historic mission. And by that I mean that there are more and more demands being made upon us. At this session of the ACU, there's going to be a debate about whether the world expects too much of universities. And I understand why that question's being posed. We are buffeted on all sides by demands from our alumni, from our students, from government, from business, all of whom claim that we're probably not doing quite as much in the areas that they care about. And so I think we're really pressed. At the same time, we therefore have to be thinking through how our historic mission of teaching and research matters in a world that is changing dramatically. We heard this morning from Sir David King, who told us about what he thought the great challenges of the next 100 years are going to be. I think his list is a very good one. It includes climate change, it includes inequality, it includes dealing with water resources. I could go on. So yes, we as universities have to figure out, are we organized in order to address those great world challenges? But that's not the same as asking ourselves, do we matter anymore? I think universities fundamentally matter. It's just that the way we deliver on our traditional mission has to change because the questions we're being asked are changing. Well, there's a wonderful piece of work by an English sociologist named Peter Laslett, who talks about how there used to be in all eras a perspective that there was a golden era that we're no longer in. So I'm always reluctant to say that we face the greatest challenges of any generation. You know, imagine people at the end of the First World War trying to contemplate how to rebuild societies, or the Second World War. You could go on. So yes, we are going through a period of fundamental challenge. I think all of the technological changes that we see, our understanding of how brains function, how people learn has grown dramatically. So we're being challenged in different ways. Is it the most historically meaningful period of change? Probably not, but it's one that we are in, and we have to seize the day.